I'm going to go through the first four, and then I'll let you all start exploring and experimenting. I'm going to go to artboard number 1. I want to also make myself aware of my layers panel. So right now I just have one layer, and the only other object in here is just that document I dragged in. I need to have 16 layers though, because I have 16 artboards. So I'm just going to go down here, create new layer. It's at the bottom of this panel. I'll drag it up so everyone can see. And I'll just go all the way to the number 16. There we go. It sounds like folks aren't watching me. And then now if you make yourself aware of the panel again, layers panel, you have these eyeballs. These eyeballs will turn the layer on and off. And then next to that, you have an empty window, which indicates a lock. So if I don't want this document to move around, I can click it, so now it doesn't move, and it won't be affected by any moves I'm making in Illustrator, which happens quite often. So now it's just kind of treated like background. Notice that if I do select this, I unlocked it. If I do select it, I have a blue bounding box around it. That blue color is specific to the color of the layer. That also helps you understand what object is in what layer. So if you select two objects, one is red, one is blue, that's an indication that you have two different layers that are active. It lets you know where it's living as well. You also have these highlight buttons on the right side of your layer. That will tell you what layer is selected and what color. It'll tell you, that you have a selected layer and what color it is aligns with its layer color. This is nice because, especially for this project, you're going to have 16 layers. Each of those layers is going to have a circle, hour, minutes, seconds. So that's 16 times 4. Who's good at math? That's 64? Wow, you're good. That's 64 objects that we need to organize. So that's a lot of shapes. Some of you will confuse some layers and place them into the wrong artboard. This will help you quickly select. You can just click on any of these buttons. It'll highlight that object in your document, and then you can place it where it needs to be after that. So I'm going to lock that again. I want to make sure that I'm starting off in layer number 1 on artboard number 1 over here. If I go to my artboards, I'll click on artboard 1. Now I'm there. I'm going to start off with a circle, and this has to have no fill. So I'm going to turn the fill off. It just needs to have a stroke, black. We're also only doing black and white. There's no color in this project. I'm going to make the stroke 5 points just so I can see it. Oh, you know what? I forgot to mention one thing. Before I make my shape, I'm going to start off by making a background color. Though we're dealing with just black and white, we're not going to use true white. We want to use something that's a little bit like a light shade of gray, just to give us offset from paper color. So if I were to print this, my frame would disappear because this white frame is the same color as paper. Has anybody ever printed a photograph where your sky's blown out, and then all you end up with is just like a strip of land at the bottom, and the sky just goes forever? It's because the sky ends up being the same color as the paper. So if we gray out the background first, that helps to guarantee when we print these, we'll have a frame. So let's go into our swatches here. I have these shades of gray. This one's pure. This one has 5 points of K, which is black. So that's gray. So we want that one. Just so you can see difference. Oops, let me turn off the stroke. Hard to see on that screen. On my screen, there's a little bit of a step. It's very subtle. That's all you need is just 5 points of black. I'm going to start by aligning it with the bleed line. We're going to go all the way to the other bleed. There we go. And after that, I'm going to lock that layer because I don't want it to move around anymore. And look at this. I created an object and I didn't even know I did. And the reason why I found that out is because I see a path showing up in my layers panel. If I select it, choose something else. Boom. Turned it on in the layers panel, hit an object. All I got to do is hit delete. Now it's clean. I'm going to click back onto layer 1. Now I want to start by making my ellipse. Some folks just cannot wait. So we're recording right now. Also, folks, we should be paying attention to the demo. So I'm going to make my circle. Just as a heads up, I'm not a fan of ellipses, in case any of you start making ellipses for this project. I have to turn off my fill. Remember that your command key is the quick way to get back to select. So now I can go back to select while I'm still inside of the shape tool. I'm going to increase the weight of my stroke. Now I'm going to shrink this down a bit. I'll start there. Now I'm going to get a rectangle. So here's the other thing. We're going to fill these, which means that we don't need a stroke on this. Because if this is just a solid black object, having a stroke is kind of overkill on it. Having a stroke on something that doesn't need a stroke can possibly confuse you later on in the future when you're resizing objects. Now this is a really cool trick. I'm going to duplicate this shape so that way I don't have to make another one. To do that, I'm going to hold, while I'm in the selection tool, I'm going to hold down the Option key, if everyone can look at my cursor. I'm sorry, if I hold down, activate it first. Now, object active, if I hold Option down, I get the duplication indicator. And that's a black and white cursor. So now if I drag, it'll duplicate that shape. And now I can rotate that. We can thin that out. And then I'll duplicate that one again. And now what I like to do whenever I make an object, I like to just kind of inspect it. I'll think about how it's occupying negative space. And then I'll try to create variation between objects. Right now, these two objects are too similar in my mind. So I'll just offset it by changing its scale. So I'll zoom in so I can see the handles a bit better. That's looking pretty nice. I liked where it was. There we go. So now I need to group these. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all of them at the same time. If you notice my layers panel, they're all highlighted. I'm going to go to Object, and I want Group. The keyboard shortcut for Group, and this is a good one to memorize, is Command G for Group. Next, I'm going to get my Align tool. I'm going to align it to the artboard. And I'm going to go Center and Center. I'm going to back out. Now it's looking pretty clean. Now I need to create a black background. But I'm going to go into layer number 2 now. So we got to create a shape. For folks who are more familiar with Photoshop, you can't just fill the background automatically. You actually have to create an object and fill that object. Make sure you have no stroke on things that don't need a stroke. And then after I do that, I'm going to lock it. And then now from Artboard 1, check this out. I'm going to grab this object. Remember that duplication feature? I'm going to drag it onto the paste board and not onto this artboard. Why am I going to do that? Because it's black and I need to be able to see. And then now what I need to do is I need to go to layer 1, and you can see the one that's highlighted, the group. If I expand that, it's all of those objects. So I'm going to close it again. And now I can just grab that sublayer and place it into layer number 2. And now its color changed to red. Now I need to change these attributes, so I'm just going to go to the fill. Let's go white. However, I have a problem.
Stroke.
This needs to be no fill. And then my stroke needs to be white. And what I can do now is I can just align it to the artboard. So align to artboard, center, center. I'm going to move on to number 3. So go to layer number 3. I want to have a, let's see here, I want to make sure I'm following the right order. So I go to black. Turn off the stroke. Now I'm going to lock it. So object, lock. Whoops, I didn't drag it all the way to the bleed. So these are, good work habits to be aware of. You want to make sure that you're lining things up where they need to be lined up. Okay, let's lock that. Now I'm going to borrow this one over here. Duplication tool. Let's drag it. Oh, we just placed it on top. Problem is stacking order. Because layer 3 is on top of layer 2, and that group is still inside of layer 2, we can't see it. It's underneath this black object. So we need to move it above. So we'll reselect it. We'll grab the group. Boom, right there. Now we need to fill this with black. Sorry, with white. Silhouette. And then let's center it. Align, center, wrong artboard. So you have to tap the artboard for it to align to the right one. I'm going to grab my group again. Align, center, center. I'm going to go into layer 4 now. I'm going to drag a shape, bleed to bleed. And turn off the stroke. I'm going to lock that layer. Now I'm going to place this somewhere else that's not on a white background because I want to see the change happen. And now I just need to fill this with black and then change its stroke to black. Oh, I just do it all black. Fill it black. And now I can either just grab this and walk it over, or I can do the cool align trick by tapping on the artboard. Select my object, align center, and align center. It's underneath that layer. It's still in layer 3, so now I need to move that group to layer 4. And there we go. And now we have, is it centered? Let's center it. It is centered. And there we have it. We have 4 variations of an arrangement of forms.